that's on their policy. So if that driver has $20,000, but let's say your claim is worth $100,000,
Okay.
then you can present an underinsured motorist claim after you collect from the responsible driver's insurance company, and they say, look, here's the money, go away. But you don't go away, you go to your company, and then you say, hey, look, this guy only had $20,000, I want to collect the rest of my, the value of my claim, and you present the claim to your own company. But this only works if you have coverage that goes up to the value of your claim. So you'd want to carry the highest possible limits that you can. This is not something you can purchase from a substandard company.
Okay.
And there's a whole gamut of substandard companies that a lot of people are buying insurance from. But the recommendation is to go with a very large company, even if it costs extra, because the insurance isn't designed just to keep you on the road. It's designed to protect you. Thus the meaning of the word insurance.
Okay, so even with that, even with the insurance, a person will still end up having to have an attorney. So, I mean, why would they need so much insurance? Even though I'm hearing what you're saying, but somebody just like a normal person, just an everyday hard-working person may say, well, I can't afford, so they still end up coming to you. How would somebody with $20,000 worth, they still have this other person, would you be able to come in and do the same thing? Because basically what you just said, it seems like they'll get to collect the money from the other driver, but then they'll have to go, so they'll still need an attorney for that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't go through all the steps that are required in terms of collecting on an underinsured policy without an attorney to ensure that everything's done correctly. There's certain steps that have to be followed. As I said, you have to collect from the other insurance company, and you have to do it within the time frame that the policy, that your policy dictates. So if it says you've got 2 years in which to do it, that means you've got to collect the money from the other driver and show your company that you've in fact collected. Then your underinsured motorist claim is technically ripe.
All right.
You're not prevented from making the claim and presenting it, but again, you want to make sure that all the language in the policy that's designed or written by the insurance company to protect them is complied with, so that you can collect on your own policy for the underinsured claim.
So now let's talk a little bit about personal injuries, along with works with the actual insurance. Now, you told me the last time that if someone is in a car and they have an accident, and the person that they're in the car with, if they don't have insurance, let's talk a little bit about that, about family members that has insurance.
I don't know if we talked about this one before, but maybe we did, but you'll refresh my memory. but the example that sticks out in my mind, and again, you'll tell me if we did, was a young girl that was seated in a vehicle that was driven by a young man who did not own that car. So here you have a guy that was borrowing a car, driving it, and my client was a passenger. And he was shot and killed. Did we talk about this?
No, we didn't talk about this one.
He was shot and killed. That now left my client in having to somehow make a claim. Well, the vehicle that he was in did not have insurance.
Okay.
And that did allow my client, who was injured in this collision, because after he was shot and killed, he drove into a pole. We did talk about this?
No.
All right.
I'm just...
You know where I'm going.
Right.
And it was a tragic set of circumstances, obviously, for the driver. But my job was to protect my client, who was the passenger, and she suffered fractured her ankle and other injuries. And was able to go to her mother's policy, because she was 16, and present the claim under the hit-and-run coverage. And the hit-and-run coverage...
Okay, now, wait, let's make this clear now.
Yes.
So she's going to go under her mother's car insurance claim, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make it clear.
Yes, because why? It's a hit-and-run in which there's contact between vehicles. So before this gentleman was shot and killed, this other vehicle had contacted the vehicle that my client was in. Then he was shot and killed, and then I guess there was another injury, or at least some more injuries. But again, we were able to establish the contact which is required. So for example, if you have two people on the road and someone cuts you off, but there's no contact, and you drive off the road and your car flips over, you don't have a claim.
But there have to be that hit.
There has to be a contact. Now, that contact could be, for example, I have a case right now where a guy's spare tire flies off the back of his car. Flies off on the highway, smashes through my client's windshield, and goes on the passenger side. And she's able to swerve just at the last second, and instead of it coming in to hit her, it goes a little bit to the right and lands in her seat. But that's a contact.
Okay.
But it wasn't hit and run, thank God, in that situation, because they were able to find the guy. But again, assuming that that driver drove away, you've got a contact. So it could be anything that flies off that vehicle which causes a connection or a contact.
Okay, so here's another story I remember us talking about, and this was something about pertaining to a young lady was coming out of a grocery store here on the south side of Chicago. She was coming out of a grocery store, and someone ran or something and snatched her purse.
This was Sears.
Okay.
This was at a Sears. I don't mind saying it. Somewhere here on the south side.
Okay.
It's public record, so
Now let's
I'm not
talk
trying to
a
make
little bit
Sears
about
look
that.
bad. I'm not trying to make Sears look bad. But it was an incident where my lady, or my client, was in walking in a Sears parking lot.
Okay.
And she had, I guess, was walking through, and as she was walking through, she was carrying a purse on her shoulder, which was connected to her coat, her jacket, which had an epaulette, where she had snapped in her purse. So, or buttoned in her purse strap. So when this vehicle that was in the parking lot with a couple of unsavory characters, unfortunately, who did snatch her purse, she unfortunately went along with the purse and was dragged across the parking lot.
So it caught to the car. And
Right. She would have been happy, I'm sure, to let the purse go, because I think she even said she didn't have any money in it, which was a tragic circumstance.
So she went to a lawyer.
And, oh yes, and this lawyer basically had told her he didn't think she had a case, and he wanted her to start investing her own money in it. And that's
Why was it that he didn't think she had a case?
I really can't speak to why he thought what he did, but he didn't think that the acts of a third party, because again, your suit would be against Sears, because these people were never caught.
See, this is why you got to call Joe. You got to call Joe, because see, listen to this one. Go ahead.
And the attorney had dropped the case, or at least my client didn't want to invest any of her money, and basically you have to establish that the actions of Sears were such that it somehow created a duty on their part. And in this particular case, we were able to show that they were going back, and I had subpoenaed from the Chicago Police Department a whole bunch of records relating to all kinds of incidents that had taken place
In their parking lot.
In their parking lot,
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Trespasses, car thefts, this, that, and the other. And ultimately, once we were able to show that they should have had more adequate security to protect people,